In today's show, it's a mailbag episode. We got questions about how the Blazers will approach the NBA draft, a pending sale of the team, and Damian Lillard's involvement with roster building. Welcome to Locked On Blazers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Trailblazers, your daily Portland Trailblazers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, world? It's your past first point guard and Trailblazers reporter, Mike Richmond. You're listening to another episode of Locked On Blazers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get podcasts and also on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Blazers your first listen every single day. It's free and available on all platforms 5 days a week. Coming at you every single weekday. Make it your first listen every day and make it a part of your daily routine. Tell your pals to do the same. Today's episode, it's a mailbag episode. We're bringing it back. During the doldrums, Blazers have been kind of slow, and I've gone away from mailbag because the questions are like, what are they gonna do in the draft and free agency? And we just gotta wait because we're still kind of building towards a little more information. I don't want to just be guessing. I want to be giving educated speculation. That's my goal. So we're bringing it back. Mailbag's back. There's two ways to get involved if you want to get in mailbags in the future. We typically do these regularly, and when the season starts, we'll do them each and every week. The two ways to get involved: tweet at me at Mike G. Rich on Twitter, or send me an email, lockedonblazerspod@gmail.com. Typically on days of mailbags, I will send out a tweet from my Twitter account at Mike G. Rich, and if you respond to that tweet, I will do my best to get you in the show. Like I said, we do these pretty regularly during the regular season. They've been a little bit slower during the true doldrums, but through the offseason, we'll do a bunch of them. So, follow me on Twitter, shoot me emails. We will do it. Mailbag's a ton of fun, so we would love to have you get involved. Without further ado, our first question comes from Matthew at Reverend Romulus on Twitter, who asks, which ends up being a higher number, Yusuf Nurkic's total three-pointers made next season, or the number of times someone asks you if the Blazers should trade their pick before the draft? It's the pick trading, but more on that in a moment. Nurk shot one three a game on average, 56 threes in 56 games. I think I projected him before the season to push up that number closer to 85, a career high. I think he doesn't. I do not want Nurk to shoot threes. Let me be clear. Don't. There's some times when it's okay. Like, I don't need him to shoot zero, but I don't need one 3-point attempt a game from Nurk. It's unnecessary for me. He can be much more. He can be a much more effective offensive player without shooting threes. Every player in the league doesn't need to shoot threes. That's a myth. He can be really good and really impactful without doing it. So, I think 70 next year is a good number for him. If he plays, say he plays 75 games, to shoot 73s in 75 games is a great number. Shoots one a game, that's fine. I'm not gonna love it, but he'll make one, and so he'll shoot another one. So I'll say between 70 and 80, but I'm getting way more than 70 and 80 questions about Blazers trading their pick. To wit, this next question comes from Greek Krapod at Greek Krapod on Twitter, who asks, if the Blazers pick stays around 6 or 7, would you trade the pick if a premier role player such as OG Anunoby was available? Yes. OG Anunoby's 24 years old. He's under contract for 3 more seasons. He's really freaking good. He's the type of player that every good team would want. I do not understand why the Toronto Raptors would want the 7th pick in the NBA draft in exchange for OG Anunoby. I don't get it, but yes, I would do that in a heartbeat. With all these trades, you got to figure out what the other team would want. What sort of stage and roster building are they want? And for me, specifically with the Raptors, they're in the stage where they want to get a star to push them over the top. They're a darn good team that needs a little bit more. They're not in reset mode. I don't read them as in reset mode, and I don't read them as having a positional logjam at all. You know what their plan is? To have a bunch of 6'9" dudes. Shout out to my man Sean Woodley, host of Locked On Raptors, who coined the phrase Operation 6'9" or Project 6'9". That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to have a bunch of tall dudes. It's great. It's working out for them. But yeah, if that trade is available, the Blazers should hammer it immediately. Next question comes from my friends Call Me Clayton at Clayton Pipert on Twitter, who asks, say the Blazers land the 6th pick. Do you think it'd be a viable strategy to move up and draft one of the big 3? Or by some miracle, Smith and Banchero is there at 4? Should we try to move up then? Yeah, here's the thing. The Blazers do not have a bunch of trade ammo. So if they do trade a bunch of stuff to move up, or some stuff, what Again, think about what another team would want. Detroit, let's just take Detroit, right? The Pistons, they get the 3rd pick in the draft. They'd rather have Jaden Ivey or whatever, or they'd they'd rather have some stuff and not necessarily Jaden Ivey at 3 or Paolo Banchero at 3, right? They're like, hey, we're comfortable trading back. We're okay. Like Ben Mathurin and Jalen Duren will do it for us as long as you give us Nazir Little. Would you trade Nazir Little and the 7th pick in the draft for the right to draft Paolo Banchero? I wouldn't do that. Like your mileage may vary, and would other teams value that? Like, would they value like Nas, who projects as probably like a long-term role player in the league, and then like someone in that 6-7 range who again probably projects as a long-term role player, like 2 starter level players for a chance at a star? I don't think so. Like, I do not think the Blazers have the ammunition to trade up there. But again, like, should they? They should consider it, and if the price is right, they should do it. But the price for them is just so narrow. The Blazers just have so few things to trade and move up that I can't really see that happening. They just need good luck on draft lottery night. They just need to end up with the first pick in the draft. Then it doesn't matter. Then we don't have to talk about them trading up. They just have to get that pick correct. Next question comes from Tyler Cornwall at Tyler Cornwall 31, who asks, in a situation where the Blazers get pick 4, which of these 2 trades would interest you the most? You see, Rev Romulus, everybody is asking about the trades. Nurk cannot keep up with this pace. I'm recording this on May 9th. We're still a week away from the NBA, the lottery, much less the draft itself. We got a long way to go. Nurk's going to have to get up 253s for us to get there. Tyler Cornwall asks, in a situation where the Blazers get the 4th pick, which of these 2 trades would interest you the most? Pick 4 for Washington's pick number 10, number 56 in the 2nd round, and Rui Hachimura, or pick number 4 for Charlotte's picks at 13, 15, and PJ Washington. It's the Charlotte package by a mile for me. I'm not a big Rui Hachimura believer. I don't think he's bad necessarily. I just don't think he's like a high-level contributor to winning basketball. I don't see him as a very good passer and a playmaker. I don't see him as a very good defender. I see him as a guy who can get a bucket. Not a need for the Blazers. Maybe a need for another team. Maybe even like a specific need for a version of the Wizards. But I'm not really a Rui guy. Just like the aesthetics of his game, I don't really care for. I like chuckers, but he's not my flavor of chucker. PJ Washington might end up being a pretty good and versatile defensive player. Like let me say this. I am a PJ guy. Like, I straight up really think PJ Washington's good. Is he like a starter on a good team? Probably not. He's probably a bench guy on a really good team, but he's a versatile dude who could play. He can play 4 and 5. Like, he's really thrived as small ball 5 in Charlotte. He can defend a bunch of different spots, like not all NBA or all defense level, but like competent defender, I think, at those spots for my money. Not much of a rim protector, but guarding in space is a really valuable tool in the league, and I think PJ does that. And if you get 13 and 15, obviously you're trading out of a real position of power in 6, and you're going to get, probably worse prospects, but it gives you a chance to either get 2 rookies or, a rookie you like who falls, like a Mark Williams or a Tari Eason if they slip to the back of the lottery, and maybe something to trade for another veteran. Like, I just think that package is just way better. And I just also straight up think PJ Washington is, like, for me, like, significantly better than Rui Hachimura. Does that make me a hater? It probably does, but it also makes me a lover because I love PJ's game. All right, let's come back in the second segment, answer more of your questions on this glorious Mailbag Monday. It's a true Mailbag Monday. I'm recording this on Monday, coming out on Tuesday. So we're back in action with a true Mailbag Monday. Let's come back, answer more of your questions. But first, let me tell you about Prize Picks. It's daily fantasy made easy. I play Prize Picks. I do it on my phone. I use the app. It's a great app, super easy to use. But you can also go to prizepicks.com. But hey, be like me. Use the app. And it's really, really simple. You can create an entry. You pick 2 and 5 players, and you're just picking against the over-unders set by Prize Picks. You can make your entry in less than 60 seconds. And it's so simple. It's all the props that you want: points, rebounds, steals, assists, total fantasy points, whatever it might be. You just pick the over/under, pick against the over/under. You pick higher or lower than the line set by Prize Picks, and if you win, you get paid. You don't even have to get all of them right. You can wager to say, I'm going to get 2 out of 3, or I'm going to get 3 out of 4, and Prize Picks still pays. I have a ton of fun doing it. I think you will too. And for a limited time, here's a no-brainer offer for you. You can get $50 for free if a player and your Prize Picks entry scores a single point when you use the promo code NBA. That's right. An exclusive offer for Locked On listeners. Sign up today. Use the promo code NBA for $50 free if a player in your first Prize Picks entry scores a single point. Go in there, put Devin Booker on your first entry, pick the whatever over under on points you want to be. When Devin Booker scores, you're going to get $50. That's Prize Picks daily fantasy made easy. Today's show also brought to you by Athletic Greens. Listen, I started my morning this morning taking AG1. It is the supplement from Athletic Greens that I got interested in because I had heard, quite frankly, other podcast hosts talk about it, and I wanted to experience the, improved gut health, the improved energy, the better optimized immune system, and all those things. So you might be asking, what is this stuff that all the podcast hosts are talking about, that everyone across the Locked On Network and the podcast world might be mentioning? Well, it's one scoop of AG1 that you can absorb, and if you put that in your glass of water in the morning to start your day, you're going to be absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins and minerals. Whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens help you start your day right. It's a special blend of ingredients that supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, your recovery, your focus. It helps you age a little bit less. I don't really know what that means, but it helps all of the things. Listen, it contains less than 1 gram of sugar, despite it being a pretty mild tropical taste. Tastes pretty good. Put in a cup of water, start your day right. It costs less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than buying your expensive cold brew from, say, a local retailer that sells them in glass bottles. It's a micro habit with big benefits. It's the one thing you can do every single day to take care of yourself. So, right now, reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. 1 scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements. Make it easy. Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of their immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NBA Network. Again, athleticgreens.com/NBA Network to take advantage of your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutrition insurance. All right, let's keep it rolling on this glorious Mailbag Monday, a traditional Mailbag Monday. I've been slacking on mailbags just because it's like during the doldrums I didn't want to do mailbags, but I also just timing-wise, haven't done a traditional Mailbag Monday in many moons, so I'm happy to be back, and I'm happy to have this next question from James Gifford at JamesGifford34 on Twitter, who asks, understanding this will take multiple cycles to build a championship caliber roster, how does the looming sell from Jody Allen affect roster building, franchise direction, and players, in parentheses, Dame's perception of the team? Players very little. I think Damian Lillard is going to end up signing a max contract extension this summer. Just a guess. I'm not reporting that, but from kind of, I'll call it an educated guess. I think that's going to happen. If he gets another $100 million, he doesn't care who owns the team. He's Gucci. He's the most powerful person in the franchise. And it's going to work out fine for him. Just in general, players are most of them salaries are kind of defined in slots, and there's also a salary cap. Ownership doesn't matter much in the sort of long term. The day-to-day stuff am I comfortable at work matters a little bit, but it matters for everything else. The players will feel the effects. Matters for everything else. The Blazers had 2 executives step down. One stepped down, one was fired this year, and they promoted from within. I'm not saying that either of the 2 gentlemen who assume those roles is not deserving of those roles. In fact, both of them, I know them and have experienced them in professional settings, totally qualified and capable of doing so. But if you're a team that is has a heavily invested owner, you probably at least conduct an outside search for both of those jobs, because it's a big, important role on a big, important company. And if you're about to sell the team, you don't specifically do that. So the person who buys the team can make those decisions. Also, just little investment stuff, there was a big incentive for them to get out of the luxury tax this year for a variety of totally reasonable reasons in terms of the team was bad and you don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on a bad team. And if you're going to spend money in the future, you might saving now and avoiding the repeater tax helps billionaires. People can just pay whatever. See Steve Ballmer. You can just pay whatever money. It doesn't matter. The billionaires have a lot of cash on hand. But it impacts how aggressively competitively teams will be, or the team can be, because they're not, I don't know if they're prepping like right now as we speak for a sale, but they're reasonably operating as if there's not a long tail on this investment. And if there's not a long tail on this investment, you don't make big money things outside of player salary. And even then you might cut back on a little player salary because there's player salary is capped. Like spending money outside of player salary is not capped, and that's kind of where you can shave the expenditures, and that's where you've seen the Blazers be maybe just like less aggressive in their pursuit of those types of things. A couple people asked about good friend of the program, Rev Dr. Beals asked, like, will we know, or will we just wake up one day and the team is sold? I think so. Like, I mean, John Canzano has reported pretty well on it. Jason Quick did some good reporting on it. Those two guys will probably have it, but it'll probably be a Woj tweet. Like that's how we'll probably learn, is like Woj will tweet it out and it'll be like, oh wow. It's not one of those things you're going to like see on Craigslist. There's like such a small circle of people who can afford a team, who can spend $2 billion on a basketball team. And even then there's, of the people who can do that, who are interested in doing it. Certainly there's people who are interested. I think it will sell quickly if the Blazers get all of their ducks in a row. Or the Allen estate rather gets its ducks in a row and wants to sell. I think it's a good investment to buy a sports team if you can afford it. So I think it'll happen quickly, but it's not going to be a public thing. It'll certainly happen behind the scenes. Next question comes from Conexion Blazers at Conexion Blazers on Twitter, who asks, if you could sign any former Trailblazers player, still playing or not, for the 3 and 4 spots, who would that be, considering Billups' schemes and that Dame, Anthony Simons, and Yusuf Nurkic are locked in at the point guard, shooting guard, and center positions? For me, this one was relatively easy. I'm looking at rangy forwards, so give me Scottie Pippen and Buck Williams. Honorable mention to Clyde freaking Drexler and Rasheed Wallace. Sheed would be really, really helpful on this team. So like he'd be up there, but the versatility of Buck and Pippen, I think is a little more valuable in the modern context. And like Clyde, like it's like a talent league. And Clyde's big. Like I'll just add a 6'7" dude who's like, was at the second best player in the league for a brief period, and certainly the second best shooting guard in the league behind Michael Jeffrey Jordan for a handful of seasons. Like, yeah, give me talent and we'll figure it out. So like, maybe like realistic, strategic X's and O's basketball nerd Mike answer is Scottie Pippen and Buck Williams, the first two names that came to my mind. But like just like, let's go for it. Rasheed Wallace and Clyde Drexler. Let's add talent. Okay, we're not going to be great on defense. That's all right. But like, give me the reins and give me like prime Clyde and prime Sheed, and I'll try. And I think with Nurk and Sheed up front, we'll be all right. And with Dame, Clyde, and Ant, we're going to be pretty good on offense. I'll happily take my chances with that approach. Next question comes from Mickey Walker at MickeyIR7 on Twitter, who asks, how many combined points and assists do Ant and Dame need to average per game next year for the Trailblazers to have success, defining success as top 6 in the West? I'll go 47 and 10. Something like 22 and 3 from Anthony and 25 and 7 from Dame. I think that's about right. 47 and 10. There's going to be more to it than just those guys, but because I think Dame and Ant could easily combine for 47 and 10 next season. The Blazers won't be very good, because I think they're both very good basketball players. But it takes more than that, and the Blazers could finish 10th in the West with those averages. But yeah, I'd say at a minimum 47 and 10 is like the baseline where those guys need to get to. Next question comes from Connor at CoolCJL on Twitter, who asks, knowing the worst-kept secret that the Pelicans pick was always destined to be traded for a starting caliber player, do you think it's still possible for the Blazers to acquire a starting level player with what remains? The 2025 pick from the Milwaukee Bucks, the trade player exception, and Keon Johnson. No, not really, no. Depends on what level of starter you mean. Like, is PJ Washington a starter? Is Rui Hachimura a starter? Yeah, yes, you could find a player who ends up starting on the team next year for that package, but you're going to, I don't know if the 2025 pick is interests enough to the Pistons to get it done, they will field other offers first to be sure. I think like my basic guess to that is no, but it kind of depends on what you mean, and it depends on kind of the situation, like specifically with everyone, the worst kept secret, the Jeremy Grant trade. Like it kind of just depends on if Grant can kind of muscle his way out of there and what the Pistons market ends up being like when they say, hold on, Jeremy, we understand what you want, but what if we explore some other avenues? And if they explore some other avenues and get something better than a 2025 pick from likely one of the best teams in the league, I mean, maybe Giannis opts out in 2024 and it changes the whole course of the Blazers franchise, but long time down the road and potentially a really a pick that doesn't look like it's going to be high up in the draft. I don't think that's super, super appealing. All right, let's come back, close the show with some more of your questions. This is glorious Mailbag Monday. But first, BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your sports action and the place with more lines, more props, more odds than ever before. You can bet on all of your NBA playoff action. You can bet on all of your NHL playoff action. You can bet on the NWLS. You can bet on the MLS. If you're into soccer here in the domestic soccer leagues here in North America, if you want to bet on soccer abroad, that's on there too. You want to bet on tennis matches, that's on there too. You could have won some money betting against Djokovic and Rafael Nadal this weekend out there in Spain. Like, could have had it if you gone to BetOnline. Also, combat sports, whatever else, you're going to find it. So do not delay. Go ahead and take advantage of this offer. That's BetOnline, where the game starts. Still a pass first point guard. Still Mike Richmond. Still listening to Locked On Blazers, and we're still cruising through a Mailbag Monday, back at it. This next question comes from Jason Reyes at Jason_Reyes_. Do not forget that second underscore. And Jason asks, do you think Damian Lillard will have major input on draft day, a la LeBron James picking Shabazz Napier in 2014? No, yes and no. Dame has always had, not always, Dame post LaMarcus, and even like once they were good post LaMarcus and kind of like truly building around him. I'm not sure that in that first year in 2015 he had a lot to say, but beyond that, Dame's had say in personnel matters. Like, I don't think he goes in there with a list of names. I mean, I'm sure he has at some point, or as people have gone in with a list of names, but like, he's not running the front office, but he's heavily consulted. In the summer of 2016, when they were bringing everybody back, they said, hey, at the end of the summer, Mo Harkless is the last one we haven't re-signed. And Dame said, you got to bring Mo back. You brought the whole boat back. Let's go get Mo. Damian Lillard was heavily involved in the Hassan Whiteside deal. That was a personal preference. He was heavily involved in the Carmelo Anthony signing. He doesn't do it, but he's consulted. Like, he's a powerful part of the franchise, and he gets some say in matters. Now, the Shabazz Napier thing with the Miami Heat in 2014 is like unique, right? LeBron was a free agent. He'd been there for 4 years. There was a lot of speculation that he was going to leave, and also like the timing of it was that Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade, like the whole Heatles trio was kind of breaking up, and it was who was going to stay and who was going to go. And LeBron is like, obviously this is what he does. He kind of like goes to a place and then holds them hostage and then leaves. And he like had specifically said Shabazz Napier was the guy he wanted. Shabazz, when he was here in Portland, I remember him telling me, it's no secret why I got drafted by the Heat. LeBron wanted me. Shabazz knew the score of the game as well. I don't think it works like that for Dame here. To be clear, I don't think it works like that for Dame here. But yes, I don't think he's going to be in the room on draft night or whatever, but he will have, Dame isn't poring over college tape, but he knows who can hoop in the league. And when they get to free agency or get to if they're making trades at draft night, Dame will have some input on who he wants to play with. Just absolutely, that's the way this enterprise works. And it's the way that most NBA teams operate, is when you have a guy of Dame's caliber who is particularly one who's been, on the team for 10 years, they get a say in things. And Dame is certainly no different than others. Eamon Kearney has our next question at Tall Good Looking on Twitter, who asks, which current Blazer has the nicest smile? I think it's Greg Brown III. Just an incredibly effervescent, bubbly, and kind fellow. Just just a warm soul and a dude who, when he smiles, you want to smile too because he's fun. I think Greg Brown is your best smile on the Blazers. KR Endless at Black Mamba TD has our next question. It says, which playoff team should the Trailblazers try to emulate for next season? I like this one because I think it comes up every postseason, and I don't think it's that simple. And I think it not being that simple is maybe a good way to think about how the Blazers get from here. Is this point A? We'll call it point A to point Z at winning a championship, right? Like how do they do those things? It's hard to follow anyone's path because team building is, is fluid. Roster construction is a fluid process. Damn it, Neil. Yeah, like it is. Unfortunately, that's true. Like it's just, you can't follow everyone's path. You can't follow the path of the 76ers, right? You can't exactly do it that way. There's something to be said for that approach. You get a franchise pillar and you build around him and you try to add vets and, nail the 21st pick in the NBA draft in Tyrese Maxey. And when you have a chance, you trade for another star and you hope it works. And finally, when James Harden has one good game in the playoffs, it feels like it worked. James Harden was like fine, but he was not James Harden until game 4. And then he looks like James Harden again. It looks a little smarter, but can you follow that path? I think like the closest thing to it, like who they should emulate is Phoenix, a team that won 65 games this year after playing in the NBA Finals, but like highly paid Hall of Fame level point guard. Okay. Really good 2-guard next to him. Ant has a long way to go to be Devin Booker, but sure. Sure. And then, win the lottery and get it right. That would be this year. You win the lottery and you draft your DeAndre Ayton type. You draft your franchise changer at, a guy who can, as a rookie, grow with a team that's great. And then maybe your owner cheaps out and he leaves or whatever's going to happen with DeAndre Ayton. I still think he ends up in Phoenix on the max, but like you win the lottery in a year that maybe you were like the 5th worst team in the league. I believe is when Phoenix won the lottery. They weren't at the tippy top of the draft. And then you nail some mid-lottery picks. Mikal Bridges, a mid-lottery pick they traded for on draft night. Cam Johnson famously went 11th. Cam Johnson went 11th? That's love, bro. And you get those picks incredibly right. You are an appealing destination, so someone like Jay Crowder ends up there, and you can fill the end of your bench with quality players like JaVale McGee because you're already a really good team. Like, that's the Blazers' path forward. That's a 3-year plan, or generously a 2-year plan if things go well for the Blazers over the next 2 drafts. Is 2 years... 2 years, so much can change in the league. It moves so quickly. So that's not perfect, but I think that's something if you're talking about what could they emulate, vets, really good second tier star, and then nailing the draft once when you're at the top of the lottery, and then a couple times in the back half of the lottery. That's who you emulate. You build an elite defensive team anchored by 2 incredible individual offensive scorers. That's who you emulate. That's not easy. I don't think they can do that, but for you, KR Endless, that's the path. Next question, the final question of the show, comes from Casey Box, who asks, in theory, when constructing a playoff caliber roster, what is the ideal balance of rookie scale contracts, vet minimum contracts, mid-level-ish guys, and max contract guys? This is a great one. And the answer is it's unclear. Typically, you would need 2 max guys who deserve max contracts. And but what I mean by that is that if you have Joel Embiid and James Harden on the max, and Harden is now and likely will be this summer when Daryl Morey hooks him up with the Brinks truck, you need them performing at max levels. Then you need your Jay Crowders of the world, your Danny Greens of the world, your sort of like mid-level veteran guys who are making more than the minimum to hit. You need them to hit. You need them to like be really valuable. Then you need some vet minimum guys, some sort of like, or lower exception guys, the Bobby Portises of the world to hit, right? To agree to take a little bit less and to be really valuable in their contributions. Then you need players on the back half of the rotation on vet minimums. You need vet minimum guys who contribute. I mean, it's hard to do it without minimum guys who can contribute. There's always an exception to this, right? But like you typically, like 2 max guys, a mid-level guy that hits, a smaller or like secondary mid-level guy that hits. So that's 2 max, 2 mids, like 3 vet minimums. And then like the best teams, and this is really, really important for every team, is that you get 2 to 3 players on rookie deals who are contributors on while they are underpaid. The way to build a team that excels in the league is not to wildly and lavishly spend. Although the Warriors might prove me wrong here, but what the Warriors attempted to do was add Moses Moody and add Jonathan Kuminga and add James Wiseman, add these high-end lottery guys and have them be contributors on the bridge to what's next. Add Jordan Poole as the contributors to what's next to an incredibly expensive roster, right? To an incredibly expensive roster. The young guys other than Jordan Poole really haven't hit. Kuminga's fine, but he's like a good 19-year-old, but he's also like a 19-year-old. He looks a little out of his depth at the highest level of basketball. But to win a title, you need players that are underpaid, because you need to max out certain guys, because you need a superstar, and probably if you have a 1A superstar, you need a 1B superstar too to really win a title, right? You need a Drew Holiday, a Chris Middleton, Chris Paul to your Devin Booker. You need it. But then because of the just realities of the salary cap, you need to have rookie scale guys who are on rookie contracts vastly outperform that rookie scale deal. You need a guy who's drafted and on a rookie deal to play like a guy who's going to get a max contract but he needs to perform and help you win before he's eligible for that big deal. Like, they kind of missed the boat with Ant's breakout. Ant's going to get paid. If Ant gets paid and vastly outperforms like a $20 million annually a year deal, the Blazers will be in a really good spot, right? Because they'll be able to fix, clean up their books and maybe have a little bit of space to add, other role players that can really help without being crazy up against it financially. They're going to be up against it financially, but maybe not wildly up against it financially if Ant was making $35 million as opposed to $19.5 million, whatever it might be. That difference will matter at some point. Not in terms of like what they have to offer, they'll probably be over the cap team, but tax payments and decisions about tax payments and all of those things. I don't think there's a perfect formula. I don't think you can say, I know I said 2, 3, and 2, for 2 max, 2 mid-level, 3 vets and 3 rookies. That's just I'm kind of just ballparking. What you need is your max players to play like max players, and you need 2 guys to play well above what they're getting paid. When the Warriors were incredible, when they were the best team of the last decade, Steph Curry was making $11 million a year. He was on a crazy contract that, because his ankles were screwed up early in his career, he signed ended up being a well below market deal. It allowed them to add Kevin freaking Durant, and they became incredible. You just have to have guys underpaid. If you listen to this podcast in the past, I'm pretty pro labor. I'm never rooting for players to be underpaid. I'd rather be, what would you rather be? Underpaid or overrated? I'm always rooting for overpaid. So, I don't know if there's a perfect formula, even though I've laid out a formula, but I know that you cannot have guys on max contracts underperform, and you have to have guys on rookie scale deals vastly outperform their level. It's why I'm very much in favor of the Blazers using their pick this year and getting someone who ends up being straight up underpaid, who ends up vastly outperforming that rookie contract. I think that's their path forward. Like I've said a bunch on this particular episode, not an easy one, but I earnestly and honestly believe that's where they got to go. That is going to do it for today's show. That's your mailbag Monday, a traditional Mailbag Monday. There were a couple questions, to be frank. I'm not going to shout you guys out now, but there were a couple questions that were awesome this week, and I'm just going to save them and use them later this week. So if you did not hear your question, you're like, Mike, I sent you an absolute banger. Guess what? I probably agree, and we're just going to do a whole episode talking about that absolute banger that you sent me. So come back and listen to that one. We got a Locked On NBA Network mock draft coming later this week. Me and my fellow hosts on the teams that are not in the playoffs conducted a mock draft. It went down today, so later this week I will bring you the mock draft from Locked On NBA. It's a whole bunch of fun. I bet we'll do a couple more of these before things really get going, and after the picks are finalized. We'll certainly do a full mock draft as we've done in the past, but we'll do a couple little mini lottery simulations before we get there as well. That should be a lot of fun. So we got more fun shows coming for you later this week. So come on back and tell your friends to do the same. Available 5 days a week, free on all platforms. Just search Locked On Blazers. You will find us wherever you're looking. Appreciate you listening. I'll talk to you soon.